cops pulled over a rusty old truck. Thought it was just another
Picture this. Silent warriors. A dusty 1952 Chevrolet pickup. Rust creeping along its faded blue paint. Rattling down Interstate 40 outside Amarillo, Texas. Two state troopers see it weaving slightly. Smoke puffing from the exhaust. They flip on their lights, expecting just another routine traffic stop. They had no idea that, in exactly 1 hour, their careers would flash before their eyes when a 4-star general stepped out of a black SUV. What happened next? Well, that's a story about respect, sacrifice, and why you should never judge a book by its cover. Let me take you back to that sweltering August afternoon. Trooper Jake Morrison had been on the force for 8 years. His partner, rookie officer Sarah Chen, was just 6 months out of the academy. They were parked at their usual speed trap spot when the old Chevy came into view. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" Jake asked, straightening in his seat. Sarah nodded. "That truck's weaving a bit. Could be a DUI. The vehicle wasn't speeding, but it drifted slightly over the center line twice in a quarter mile. That was enough." Jake hit the lights and pulled out. The truck took almost a full minute to pull over. Not in a defiant way, but slow, deliberate, careful. Like the driver was making absolutely sure he cleared the shoulder properly. That should have been their first clue. When the Chevy finally stopped, both troopers approached cautiously. This is where the story really begins, silent warriors. Because what they saw didn't match what they expected. The driver was old, really old. Had to be pushing 90. His hands remained on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, perfectly still. He wore a faded Korean War veteran's cap and a simple flannel shirt despite the heat. His eyes, though clouded with age, were sharp and alert. "License and registration, sir," Jake said, his tone professional but firm. The old man moved slowly, deliberately. "My license is in my wallet, left pocket. Registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for them now." Jake noticed the man's hands. They trembled slightly, but not from fear, maybe illness. The truck's interior was immaculate despite the exterior's condition. A folded American flag sat in a display case on the passenger seat. Photos were tucked into the sun visor, black and white images of young men in military uniforms. "Sir, do you know why I pulled you over?" "I expect I was weaving a bit," the old man replied, his voice gravelly but clear. "My eyes aren't what they used to be. Neither are my hands. But I'm careful. Always am." Sarah leaned in. "Sir, me, you shouldn't be driving if your vision is impaired." The old man turned to look at her, and something in his gaze made her step back. Not anger, not resentment, just weight. Like he was carrying something heavy that she couldn't see. "Young lady, I'm driving from Fort Worth to Santa Fe. It's my last trip. I need to make it." "Last trip?" Jake asked. "To see my brother. He's dying. Vietnam veteran." Agent Orange finally caught up with him. "Doctors say he's got days, maybe a week." Jake and Sarah exchanged glances. This was getting complicated. "Sir, I understand that's difficult. But if you're not fit to drive." "I'm fit enough," the old man interrupted, his voice gaining strength. "Been driving this truck for 40 years. Never had an accident. Never hurt anyone. I just need to get to Santa Fe." Jake looked at the license. Thomas William Barrett, age 89, veteran's designation on the license. The address was a small town outside Fort Worth. The registration matched. "Mr. Barrett, I'm going to level with you. You're weaving. Your reaction time pulling over was slow. I could cite you, maybe even suspend your license on the spot for unsafe driving." Thomas nodded slowly. "I understand. You've got a job to do, but so do I. My job is to be there when my little brother takes his last breath. I made him a promise in 1968, when he shipped out to Da Nang. I promised if he ever needed me, I'd be there. I intend to keep that promise." Sarah felt something twist in her chest. Her own grandfather was a Vietnam vet. She knew that generation. The promises they made weren't casual. They were blood oaths. But Jake was thinking about policy, about liability, about the newspaper headline if this old man crashed into a family of 4 20 miles down the road. "Sir, can't in good conscience let you continue driving. You're a danger to yourself and others." "So what are you suggesting?" Thomas asked, I'll need to call someone to pick you up. Family member? Friend? Thomas shook his head. No family left, except Robert. That's my brother. Friends are all gone, dead or in homes. It's just me. Jake felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. He couldn't let this man drive, but he also couldn't just strand him here. I'll have to impound the vehicles, sir. You can arrange for someone to. That truck is all I have, Thomas said, and for the first time, there was emotion in his voice. My son restored it before he died. Iraq. 2006. Marine. It's the last thing I have of him. Silence hung in the hot Texas air. Sarah stepped away, pulling Jake with her. We can't just leave him here. We also can't let him drive. Sarah, if he kills someone, I know, but there has to be another way. Jake ran his hand through his hair, sweating under his trooper hat. Like what? We can't drive him to Santa Fe ourselves. That's way outside our jurisdiction. That's a 7-hour drive. So we call someone. Social services. Veterans Affairs. On a Friday afternoon? He'd be stuck here until Monday at least. They walked back to Thomas, who sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead. Mr. Barrett, I'm going to call the Veterans Affairs office. See if they can help arrange transportation for you. Thomas turned to look at Jake. How long will that take? Jake hesitated. I don't know. Maybe a few hours. Could be longer. My brother doesn't have hours. He might not have till sunset. And that's when Jake made the decision that would change everything. He pulled out his ticket book. Sir, I'm citing you for unsafe lane change. The fine is $175. The truck stays here. I'll call a tow truck. Thomas nodded slowly, accepting the ticket with steady hands despite their tremor. I understand. You're doing your job. As Jake called for the tow truck, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong about this. Her instincts were screaming at her, but she was a rookie. What did she know? The tow truck arrived 20 minutes later. Thomas stood beside his Chevy, one hand resting on the hood like he was saying goodbye to an old friend. He carefully took the flag case and a small duffel bag from the cab. Where will you go? Sarah asked. There's a motel about a mile back. I'll walk there. Call Veteran Services. See what they can do. We can give you a ride to the motel, Sarah offered. Jake shot her a look but didn't object. They loaded Thomas into the back of the patrol car, the old man sitting with his flag case on his lap, like it was the most precious thing in the world. They dropped him at the Desert Rose Motel, a run-down place that had seen better days. Thomas thanked them politely, with the same dignity he'd shown throughout the entire encounter. As they drove away, Sarah couldn't stop looking in the side mirror, watching Thomas slowly walk toward the motel office, his duffel bag over one shoulder, flag case clutched to his chest. You think we did the right thing? She asked. Jake gripped the steering wheel. We did what we had to do. Policy is policy, but neither of them felt good about it. They returned to their patrol route, but the encounter stayed with them. Jake filled out his report, documenting everything, by the book, everything correct, but something gnawed at him. An hour passed. They were grabbing coffee at a gas station when Jake's personal phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, is this Trooper Jake Morrison? The voice was clipped, professional, military. Yes. Who is this? This is Lieutenant Colonel David Price, United States Army, calling from Fort Hood. I need to speak with you about an incident today involving a Mr. Thomas Barrett. Jake felt his stomach drop. How did you get my number? That's not important. What's important is that you impounded Mr. Barrett's vehicle and left him stranded at a motel off I-40. Is that correct, sir? I was doing my job. The man was driving unsafely. I'm not questioning your judgment, Trooper. I'm calling to inform you of something you should know. Stand by. There was a clicking sound. Then a different voice came on the line. Authority that could be felt even through a phone. Trooper Morrison, this is General Marcus Thornton. Jake felt like the ground was tilting under him. The general continued. His son, Captain Michael Barrett, USMC, died in Fallujah providing covering fire for his squad. Posthumous Silver Star. His grandson currently serves with the 82nd Airborne. Thomas Barrett represents 3 generations of American military service. Sir, I didn't know. You didn't ask, the general said. not unkindly. You saw an old man in an old truck. You didn't see the hero. More importantly, his brother, Robert Barrett, is dying at the VA hospital in Santa Fe. Robert is also a decorated veteran. 2 Purple Hearts. Thomas made a promise to be there. Jake's hand was shaking now. General, I was following procedure. The man was weaving his vision. I understand you were doing your job, trooper. I respect that. But here's what's going to happen now. You're going to fix the situation. Because in approximately 35 minutes, I'm going to arrive at that motel, and I'm going to personally drive Mr. Barrett to Santa Fe to see his brother. But before I do that, you're going to return his truck. You're going to apologize, and you're going to understand that sometimes the letter of the law needs to make room for the spirit of honor. The line went dead. Jake stood there, phone in hand, feeling like he'd just been hit by a truck. Sarah had heard the whole thing on speakerphone. "Oh my God," she whispered. "We need to go now." They jumped in the patrol car and sped back toward the impound lot. Jake called the tow company, barking orders to have Barrett's truck released immediately. No charge, emergency situation. As they drove, Jake's mind was racing. A Medal of Honor recipient. How had he not known? How had he not seen? Because he'd been so focused on the rules that he'd forgotten to see the man. That's how. Sarah was quiet, then said softly, "Grandfather would have done the same thing. Driven across the country even if he could barely see. Just to keep a promise to his brother." Jake nodded, unable to speak around the tightness in his throat. They reached the impound lot and bullied their way through the paperwork. The truck was released in record time. Jake would drive it himself back to the motel. They pulled into the Desert Rose Motel parking lot, Jake driving the old Chevy, Sarah following in the patrol car. The truck ran rough but steady. Inside, Jake noticed things he'd missed before. A rosary hanging from the rearview mirror, a photo tucked into the visor of a young man in marine dress blues. Michael, the son, the one who'd restored this truck, the one who died in Iraq. Another photo showed 2 young men in Korean War-era uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera despite the snow and devastation behind them. Thomas and Robert, brothers. 1950. Jake felt like the world's biggest fool. They parked and walked to the motel office. The clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, looked up. "We're looking for Thomas Barrett. We brought his truck back." Her expression softened. "Room 7. But honey, you should know he's in there crying. That old man is in there crying because he thinks he's going to miss his brother's death. You should be ashamed." The words hit like a physical blow. Jake and Sarah walked to room 7. Jake knocked. "Mr. Barrett, it's Trooper Morrison. We brought your truck back." Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Thomas looked older somehow, smaller. His eyes were red, but he stood straight, maintaining that dignity even now. "My truck." "Yes, sir. I made a mistake. I should have found another way. I'm sorry." Thomas studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You were doing your job. No hard feelings, son." "Sir, there's something else. A General Thornton called me. He's on his way here. He said he's going to drive you to Santa Fe personally." For the first time, Thomas's composure cracked. His eyes widened. Marcus Thornton." "Yes, sir." "You know him? He was one of the 43, Thomas said softly. "At Chosin. He was a second lieutenant then. I pulled him out of a Chinese foxhole. He was wounded. I thought I'd never see him again." And that's when they heard it. The distinctive thump 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 of a helicopter. Everyone looked up. A Black Hawk was approaching, military markings clear against the evening sky. It circled once, then landed in the empty field behind the motel, dust and tumbleweeds swirling in its rotor wash. "Jesus," Sarah breathed. The helicopter's doors opened. 4 people emerged. 3 were clearly military personnel, even in civilian clothes. You could tell from the way they moved, the way they carried themselves. The 4th was old, maybe late 60s, but still powerfully built. His hair was silver, his bearing unmistakable. He wore a simple suit, but his posture screamed military command. General Marcus Thornton. He strode across the field toward the motel, and Jake felt his spine straighten involuntarily. This was a man who commanded respect just by existing. Behind him, black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Military tags. The general reached them and stopped. His eyes swept over Jake and Sarah, assessing them in a single glance. Then his gaze settled on Thomas, and this four-star general, this man who commanded thousands, who advised presidents, who'd spent 40 years rising through the ranks of military leadership. This man came to attention and saluted. "Tom," he said, voice thick with emotion. "It's been too long." Thomas, slowly, returned the salute. "Marcus, you didn't have to come." "The hell I didn't. You saved my life. I told you back in Korea. I'd never forget that. I meant it." The two men embraced, and Jake felt Sarah grip his arm. They were witnessing something profound, something bigger than themselves. When they separated, General Thornton turned to Jake and Sarah. His expression wasn't angry, just disappointed, which somehow felt worse. "Troopers," he said, "you did your job today. You followed procedure. I understand that. But let me tell you something about this man that you should have known." He put his hand on Thomas's shoulder. December 1950, Chosin Reservoir. Coldest winter Korea had seen in 50 years. We were surrounded by Chinese forces, outnumbered 10 to 1. Our position was being overrun. The order came to retreat. Thomas stayed behind, alone, with a Browning .30 caliber machine gun and about 500 rounds of ammunition. He held that position for 6 hours. 6 hours, while 43 of us got to safety. The Chinese threw everything they had at him. When we finally fought our way back to the position, we found him still alive, surrounded by bodies, his hands frozen to the gun. He'd lost 2 fingers to frostbite, but he never let go. General Thornton's voice broke slightly. He received the Medal of Honor. President Truman hung it around his neck himself. And do you know what Tom did with it? He put it in a drawer and went back to his farm. Never talked about it. Never bragged. Just lived his life with honor and dignity. Jake felt like he was going to be sick. "Sir, I didn't know." "No, you didn't. And that's partially on Tom here, because he doesn't go around telling people. But it's also on you, trooper, because you saw an old man and an old truck, and you made assumptions. You followed the rules without understanding the person." Sarah spoke up, her voice trembling. "General, we're sorry. We truly are. If we could take it back." General Thornton's expression softened slightly. "I know you are, and I'm not here to end your careers. I'm here to teach you something. You want to know what real honor looks like? Real sacrifice? Real American heroism? You're looking at it. Thomas Barrett is America, the America worth protecting, and you treated him like a burden." The words hung in the air. Thomas put his hand on the general's arm. "Marcus, that's enough. They were doing their job. I was weaving. My eyes aren't good. They had reason to stop me, but they didn't have reason to leave you stranded," the general countered. "They came back," Thomas said simply. "That counts for something." General Thornton looked at the old man he'd known for 70 years, and something passed between them, an understanding that transcended words. Finally, the general nodded. He turned back to Jake and Sarah. "You came back. You made it right. That takes courage too. Different kind, but courage nonetheless. Remember this day, troopers. Remember that everyone you meet has a story. Everyone has fought battles you can't see. The uniform you wear means you're supposed to protect and serve. Sometimes that means protecting people from themselves. Sometimes it means serving them with compassion, just compliance." "Yes, sir," Jake and Sarah said in unison. General Thornton turned to Thomas. "Come on, old friend. Let's get you to Santa Fe. I've got a pilot who'll have us there in 90 minutes. "What about my truck?" Thomas asked. "We'll have it transported. My people will handle it." But Thomas shook his head. "No, driving it, like I planned." Everyone stared at him. "Tom, your eyes will be fine, because these 2 troopers are going to escort me, aren't you?" Jake blinked. "Sir?" Thomas looked at him with those sharp eyes. "You want to make this right? Really right? You escort me to Santa Fe. Keep me on the road. Make sure I get there safe." That's how you serve. Jake looked at Sarah. She nodded. It's outside our jurisdiction, Jake began. I'll handle that, General Thornton said, pulling out his phone. Give me 5 minutes and you'll have authorization from the governor himself. And that's exactly what happened. 5 minutes later, Jake's captain was calling him, stammering about orders from the governor's office to provide interstate escort to a Medal of Honor recipient. Full authorization, all expenses covered. You've got to be kidding me, the captain said. Morrison, what the hell did you get into? Long story, sir. Well, you've got 7 hours to think about it. Don't screw this up. And so, in the fading Texas twilight, a convoy formed. The black military SUV in front. Then Thomas's 1952 Chevy pickup. Blue and rust and beautiful. Behind it, a Texas State Police patrol car with lights flashing. And overhead, a Black Hawk helicopter, because General Marcus Thornton wasn't taking any chances with his friend's safety. They drove through the evening, through the night, across Texas and into New Mexico. The drive was long, silent in some ways, profound in others. Jake followed that old truck through mile after mile of darkened highway. He watched Thomas's brake lights, his turn signals, his steady pace. The man drove carefully, deliberately, just as he'd said, never swerving now, because he had purpose, because he had escorts, because he was going to keep his promise. Around midnight, they stopped at a rest area. Everyone got out to stretch. General Thornton approached Jake and Sarah. You're doing good, troopers. Sir, can I ask you something? Sarah said. Shoot. Why did you really come? I mean, you're a 4-star general. You could have sent anyone. General Thornton looked at the old Chevy, where Thomas sat on the tailgate, sipping coffee from a thermos. You ever have someone save your life? The general asked. No, sir. I was 23 years old, second lieutenant, fresh out of West Point. Thought I was invincible. Then I got shot, fell into a frozen trench, and Chinese soldiers were closing in. I was dead. I knew it. I'd accepted it. He paused, lost in memory, and then this crazy sergeant from Texas jumped down into that trench. He pulled me up with one hand while shooting with the other, carried me half a mile while under fire. When I woke up in the field hospital 3 days later, he was sitting beside my cot. He said, "You're gonna be okay, Lieutenant. You're gonna do great things." Then he just left, went back to his position. I spent the next 70 years trying to prove him right. Every promotion, every mission, every decision, I thought about that moment. About how I was only alive because someone I barely knew decided I was worth saving. The general's eyes were wet now. So when I heard that same man was stranded by the side of the road, trying to keep a promise to his dying brother, yeah, I came. I'd have crawled through broken glass to be here. Jake felt something fundamental shift inside him. This was what it meant to serve. Not just enforcing laws, but understanding the human beings behind every situation. They continued driving. They reached Santa Fe Hospital at 2:47 am. The helicopter had landed ahead of them. Hospital staff were waiting. Thomas got out of his truck slowly, stiffly. 7 hours of driving at age 89 had taken its toll. But he stood straight, carrying his flag case and duffel bag. What room? He asked a nurse. 3rd floor, room 317. But sir, it's very late. He's awake, Thomas said. I know he is. He's waiting for me. They took the elevator up. General Thornton, Thomas, Jake, Sarah, and 2 of the general's aides. The hospital was quiet, the hallways dim with nighttime lighting. Room 317. Thomas paused at the door. His hand trembled on the handle. For the first time, Jake saw real fear in the old man's face. Tom, General Thornton said softly, I'm scared, Marcus. What if I'm too late? What if I broke my promise? Only one way to find out. Thomas opened the door. The room was dark except for a small lamp. Medical equipment beeped softly, and in the bed, a man who looked remarkably like Thomas lay propped up on pillows. He was thin, wasted by disease, oxygen tubes in his nose, but his eyes were open, and when he saw Thomas, those eyes filled with light. Tommy, Robert Barrett whispered. You made it. Told you I would, Bobby. 67 years ago. I told you I'd always be there. I keep my promises. Jake and Sarah stood in the doorway, watching as Thomas crossed to his brother's bedside. The two old men gripped hands, and without shame or embarrassment, both began to cry. "You drove all this way?" Robert asked. "Course I did. Couldn't let you check out without saying goodbye. That old truck still running? Like a dream. Michael did good work on it before he left." Robert nodded. "Good boy. Both our boys were good boys. The best." They talked quietly for a while. Jake and Sarah stayed in the hallway, giving them privacy. General Thornton stood with them, his face wet with tears he didn't bother hiding. "That's what brotherhood looks like," he said. "Real brotherhood. Not just biology, not just shared experience, but promises kept across decades. Loyalty that transcends time." After about 20 minutes, a doctor approached. "Excuse me, but Mr. Barrett needs rest." "No," came Robert's voice from inside the room. "I've been resting for months. Right now I'm living. Don't interrupt." The doctor retreated. They stayed for 3 more hours. Thomas sat beside his brother's bed, and they talked about everything: Korea, Vietnam, their parents' farm, fishing trips they'd taken as kids, the girls they'd loved, the lives they'd built. Robert was fading. Everyone could see it. His voice got weaker, his pauses longer, but he smiled. God, he smiled. Around 5:30 a.m., as dawn light started creeping through the window, Robert squeezed his brother's hand. "Tommy, I'm tired now." "I know, Bobby. It's okay. You can rest. You'll stay until the very end. I promise." Robert smiled. "You always keep your promises." He closed his eyes. His breathing got slower, shallower. Thomas held his hand, tears streaming down his weathered face. General Thornton, Jake, and Sarah stood at the door, witnesses to something holy. Robert Barrett died at 6:14 a.m., just as the sun cleared the horizon. He died holding his brother's hand, with his promise kept, and with the honor and dignity befitting a decorated veteran. Thomas sat there for a long time, holding that still hand, saying goodbye to the last piece of his childhood, his family, his history. When he finally stood, he carefully draped the American flag from his flag case over his brother's body. He saluted, crisp and perfect despite his trembling hands. Then he walked out of the room, and General Marcus Thornton caught him as his legs gave out. "I got you, Tom. I got you." The sun was fully up when they walked out of the hospital. Thomas had refused to leave Robert until the funeral home arrived. He'd made all the arrangements by phone, right there in the hallway, efficient, practical, taking care of business. Because that's what you did. In the parking lot, he stood looking at his old truck. "I should get back. Got a funeral to plan." "I'm flying you back," General Thornton said. "The truck will be transported." For once, Thomas didn't argue. He was exhausted, grief-stricken, empty. But before getting into the SUV, he turned to Jake and Sarah. "Thank you," he said, "for bringing me here, for helping me keep my promise." Jake stepped forward. "Sir, I want to apologize again for how I handled the initial stop, for not seeing who you really were." Thomas held up his hand. "Son, you made a mistake. Then you fixed it. That's all any of us can do. You think I haven't made mistakes? You think I've never had regrets? Life isn't about being perfect. It's about doing right when it counts. You're a hero, sir." "No," Thomas said firmly. "I'm a man who did what needed doing one time. 75 years ago. The real heroes are the ones who never came home. The ones whose names are on walls and monuments. I'm just a guy who got old." But General Thornton shook his head. "Tom, you're wrong. Heroism isn't just that one day at Chosin. It's every day after. It's raising a good son. It's letting him serve even though you knew you might lose him. It's restoring an old truck to honor his memory. It's driving 7 hours when you can barely see, just to keep a promise to your brother. That's heroism too. The everyday kind. The kind that doesn't get medals." Thomas looked at his old friend, and finally, he smiled. "When did you get so wise, Marcus?" "Had a good teacher." They flew back to Texas. Jake and Sarah drove home in the patrol car, exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but changed. They didn't talk much during the drive. What was there to say? They'd witnessed something profound, something that redefined what they thought they knew about service, honor, and humanity. 3 weeks later, Jake and Sarah attended Robert Barrett's funeral in Santa Fe. Military honors, flag-draped coffin, 21-gun salute. The whole ceremony. Thomas Barrett stood straight through all of it, accepting the folded flag with dignity. After the service, General Thornton found Jake. "I wanted you to see this, to understand what you helped make possible." Tom got to say goodbye. He kept his promise. "That matters. You made that possible." "We almost didn't, sir." "But you did. You came back. You made it right. Remember that. Remember, there's always a chance to make things right." 6 months later, Thomas Barrett died peacefully in his sleep. He was buried next to his son Michael, with full military honors. General Marcus Thornton delivered the eulogy. Jake and Sarah were in attendance, in uniform, and that old 1952 Chevrolet pickup? General Thornton arranged for it to be restored, professionally this time, and donated to the National Medal of Honor Museum, where it sits today with a plaque that reads, "This truck belonged to Sergeant Thomas William Barrett, Medal of Honor recipient." It was restored by his son, Captain Michael Barrett, USMC, who gave his life in Iraq. Thomas drove this truck one last time to keep a promise to his brother, reminding us all that true honor isn't just about the big moments. It's about keeping your word, honoring your family, and understanding that real heroism happens every day. So that's the story. Silent Warriors. The story of two cops who made a mistake and fixed it. The story of an old man who kept a promise. The story of a general who never forgot the sergeant who saved his life. The story of two brothers who stood by each other from Korea to the grave. What's the lesson here? Maybe it's about not judging people by their appearance. Maybe it's about understanding that everyone you meet is carrying burdens you can't see. Maybe it's about the difference between following rules and serving people. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just about recognizing that real honor, real heroism, isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's an old man in an old truck, determined to keep a promise made 67 years ago. Sometimes it's a general dropping everything to help the man who saved him. Sometimes it's two cops realizing they screwed up and doing whatever it takes to make it right. That roadside stop changed everyone involved. Jake Morrison eventually made lieutenant and started training programs on community policing with empathy. Sarah Chen went on to specialize in veteran outreach, making sure other veterans got the respect they deserved. And General Marcus Thornton? He kept Thomas's Medal of Honor on his desk until the day he retired, a reminder that the debts we owe aren't always to institutions or countries. Sometimes they're to people, to friends, to the ones who pulled us out of frozen trenches when we were too young and too stupid to know we were dying. So next time you see an old person struggling, or someone driving a beat-up car, or anyone who doesn't fit your idea of success or importance, pause, think, ask yourself, what battles have they fought that I can't see? What promises are they keeping? What promises are they keeping that I know nothing about? What makes their journey sacred, even if I don't understand it? Because here's the truth. Silent warriors. America is built on the backs of people like Thomas Barrett. Not just the Medal of Honor moment, though that matters. God knows it matters. But the everyday heroism, the quiet dignity, the promises kept when it would be easier to break them. I want you to think about something. Thomas was 89 years old. His hands shook. His eyes were failing. He could have called his brother, video chatted, sent someone else, made excuses, but he didn't. Because when you tell your brother, "I'll be there when you need me," and you say it in 1968, before he ships out to a war he might not come back from, that's not just words. That's a blood oath. That's sacred. And men like Thomas Barrett don't break sacred promises. The world's changed a lot since 1950. Since Korea. Since Vietnam, we've got smartphones and social media and instant everything. We can talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. But have we lost something? Have we lost the understanding that some things, some promises require presence, require sacrifice, require you to drive an old truck 7 hours even when you can barely see? Because being there, physically there, matters? I think we have. And I think that's why this story matters. Thomas Barrett didn't just keep a promise to his brother. He reminded everyone who encountered him that day what real commitment looks like, what real brotherhood looks like, what real love looks like. Not convenient love, not I'll be there if it works out love, but I will move heaven and earth because I gave you my word, love. And you know what else? He showed those two cops something they'd forgotten. Something we all forget sometimes when we're just going through the motions. Following procedures, checking boxes. He showed them that every person has a story. Every person has value. Every person deserves to be seen. Jake Morrison thought he was pulling over some random old guy who couldn't drive straight. He didn't see the hero. He didn't see the father who'd buried his son. He didn't see the brother on a sacred mission. He just saw a problem to be solved according to the rule book. But here's what makes this story beautiful. He learned. He grew. He came back. That's the thing about mistakes, warriors. We all make them, every single one of us. The question isn't whether you'll screw up. You will. The question is, what do you do after? Do you dig in, make excuses, blame the system, or do you recognize the error, swallow your pride, and do whatever it takes to make it right? Jake and Sarah could have let Thomas sit in that motel, could have said, not our problem anymore, and moved on with their shift. Nobody would have blamed them. They'd followed procedure, done their jobs, but they didn't, because once they understood who Thomas was, not just his medals, but his heart, his mission, his pain, they couldn't let it stand. They had to fix it. That's character. That's integrity. That's the kind of law enforcement we need more of. Now, let's talk about General Thornton for a minute. 4-star general, decades of service, advised presidents, commanded forces, one of the most powerful men in the American military. And what does he do when he hears his old friend is in trouble? Does he delegate? Does he send an aide? No, he gets in a helicopter himself. He flies across multiple states. He shows up personally. Why? Because 75 years earlier, when he was bleeding out in a frozen Korean trench, Thomas Barrett decided he was worth saving, and that debt, that profound, life-altering debt, never expires. You want to know what made America great? Not the wars we won, not the enemies we defeated, but this right here. The idea that when someone saves you, you remember. When someone keeps their promise, you honor it. When someone needs help, you show up. That's the America worth fighting for. The America worth protecting. The America that still exists in the hearts of men like Thomas Barrett and Marcus Thornton. And you know what breaks my heart? How many Thomas Barretts are out there right now, invisible to us? How many elderly veterans are struggling, alone, trying to keep promises or just trying to survive? And we drive right past them. We see the trembling hands, the old vehicles, the slow movements, and we get impatient. We get frustrated. We think they're inconveniences. We don't see the frozen trenches they survived, the friends they buried, the children they raised, the promises they've kept for decades. We don't see the heroes. We just see obstacles. That needs to change, silent warriors. That has to change. The greatest generation is dying. Every day, we lose more World War II veterans, more Korean War veterans, more Vietnam veterans, and with them, we lose living connections to the moments that defined our nation. But before they go, we owe them something. We owe them visibility, recognition, respect. Not just on Veterans Day, not just at parades, but every single day, in every interaction. You see an old person struggling to load groceries? Help them. Not because they might be a war hero, but because they might be. And even if they're not, they're still a human being who deserves dignity. You see someone driving slowly, carefully, maybe weaving a bit. Take a breath before you honk or rage. Maybe they're on their way to keep the most important promise of their life. You see someone who doesn't fit your idea of success or importance? Look deeper, ask questions. See them as a whole person, not just a momentary inconvenience. Because here's what Thomas Barrett's story teaches us. Heroism isn't always visible, honor doesn't always announce itself, and the most important journeys often happen in beat-up trucks on dusty highways, witnessed by no one, until they are witnessed, until someone pays attention, until the story gets told. That's why I'm telling you this story, warriors, not just because it's interesting or touching, but because it's a reminder, a call to action. Be like Jake and Sarah, who made a mistake but fixed it. Be like General Thornton, who never forgot a debt and honored it decades later. Be like Robert Barrett, who served his country and trusted his brother to be there at the end. And most of all, be like Thomas Barrett. Keep your promises, honor your family, do what's right even when it's hard. Drive that old truck 7 hours if you have to, because some things matter more than convenience or safety or following the rules. Some things are sacred. You know what Thomas said at his son Michael's funeral? Someone recorded it, and I want to share it with you because it captures everything about who this man was. He said, "My boy didn't die for a flag or a government or an idea. He died for the guy next to him, for his brothers." That's what service means. It's not about grand speeches or headlines. It's about looking at the person beside you and saying, "I won't let you fall, no matter what." That's what America is supposed to be. Not a collection of strangers, but a family that takes care of its own. A family that takes care of its own. That's what Thomas did for his brother Robert. That's what General Thornton did for Thomas. That's what Jake and Sarah learned to do. That's what we all need to do. Take care of our own. Keep our promises. See each other. Really see each other. The story ends, warriors, but the lesson doesn't. Every day, you have chances to be part of someone's sacred journey. To help instead of hinder. To see instead of judge. To honor instead of dismiss. Thomas Barrett's old Chevy sits in a museum now. Thousands of people walk past it every year. They read the plaque. They see the Medal of Honor. They think, what a hero. And he was. But not just for that one day in Korea. He was a hero for every day after. For every promise kept. For every mile driven. For every hand held. For showing up when it mattered. Again and again and again. Until his last breath. That's the kind of hero we can all be. Not Medal of Honor recipients, that's rare, exceptional, earned through extraordinary circumstances, but everyday heroes, promise keepers, family honorers, people who show up. The world needs more people like Thomas Barrett. More people who understand that character is built in the small moments, the private promises, the difficult journeys that nobody else sees. So that's the story, Silent Warriors. The cops who stopped an old truck and learned what real honor looks like. The general who never forgot the sergeant who saved him. The brother who drove through failing eyes and trembling hands to keep a promise made in 1968. Remember it, share it, live it, because somewhere out there right now, there's another Thomas Barrett driving an old truck on a sacred mission. And the question is, will you be the cop who stops them and leaves them stranded? Or will you be the one who sees, understands, and helps them complete their journey? The choice is yours. This is Silent Warriors, reminding you honor isn't loud, heroism isn't always obvious, and the most important promises are often kept by people in old trucks on dusty highways, doing what needs to be done because that's who they are. God bless Thomas Barrett. God bless Robert Barrett. God bless all the brothers who kept their promises and all the families who loved them. And God bless America not for what we say we are, but for what we can be when we remember that every person has a story worth honoring. Until next time, warriors, stay strong, keep your promises, and never underestimate the power of showing up when it matters.